ends under your old job, which is still part of your new job,
Right.
and how effective they've all been. Is it possible, do you think, to play 4 tight ends in an NFL regular season game? Because the question is going to be, with Hunter, obviously, can the playing time be created for him, or would that be a challenge no matter where Hunter is in the progress barometer?
It's a position where there's got to be a lot of flexibility, and so, whether they're injuries, guy gets dinged up, I'd like to use another guy at a certain position, and they've all got to be ready to go. And in my experience just coaching that position, it's hard to keep all of them healthy through, a normal season. Include preseason, which has been a physical preseason. So we're going to get to that point in the regular season, and if we can use them as many times as we can, we will, including goal line, short yardage. So the more they can absorb, then the more opportunity they give themselves to get on the field.
It's been reinforced to us in this camp, the value and the skill of Salvon and Miles as receivers out of the backfield. Is that something, as coordinator, co-coordinator, you hope to exploit this year?
Well, those guys have a good skill set, receiving the football. And, when you throw it to them, you don't always want to just throw a check down. And if they can get out there and do some things that maybe a receiver can do, but go against a linebacker or go against a player that we feel is a matchup advantage, then we want to utilize it. It takes a lot of time, though, because a lot of those routes, when the plays get first put in, are, in the backfield. So they got to spend some extra time with the quarterbacks, getting, those routes outside, what we call extended routes, getting the chemistry with the quarterback.
There have been so many areas we've seen improvement in Tua from last year to this. What's the first thing that comes to your mind if I ask you where is the most improvement?
Well, it's been communication with each of the position groups. You can't play the position without communicating to each one of those players on how they either run a certain route or what he's expecting them to run or where to be. And that takes a lot of conversation, and we're here a lot. So he's been able to jump out and ask those questions, which are going to help his anticipation, when the ball is snapped.
I wanted to ask you your thoughts on how the transition's gone for Peter, obviously second year at center, first time really playing, and Rob Hunt to right guard. Have those gone smooth, seamlessly? You guys pleased with those two?
Yeah, I mean, both those guys are smart players, and it's another position where there's only really 8 of them active on game day, so they got to have some flexibility. And it's nice for Michael to have played, guard for a year, and now knowing what it takes from a center with that communication. Same thing with Rob with the guard and tackle. So all of that works together. I wouldn't say it's an easy transition for anybody at any level or at this level for any position, but those guys have done a good job of trying to stay ahead of all the install.
And Austin Jackson, how would you assess how he's done in the super season games in camp?
Yeah, I mean, it's that position, left tackle, at this level is one of the hardest in sports, and it's one of the hardest, on the line. You're going against a premier pass rusher on every snap, and he knows it's one play at a time. We gotta make sure we help both sides out with chips and tight end presence. But Austin has been, nothing but a pleasant surprise or a pleasant, pleasantry out there at tackle, just because he knows the offense. He run blocks well. He's aggressive. Enjoys being out here every day, and so he's doing a good job too of communicating with the guards. Who's playing left guard, and we know that there's been some movement there. So that's part of his leadership on the line.
What does Kenley give you on the line now that obviously you have the chance to start Saturday night? His presence gets you what?
Well, he's got some experience, as a rookie playing there, a lot of snaps, and then he also is a run blocker, north-south, downhill inside run blocker. He can pull, he can double team, a zone block, and he's got, like I said, familiarity with going against some pretty top-level players last year. So, again, all experience helps at that position.
Two last things for me. With Liam, when you and Lem and Eric and Flo are in a room, I know obviously you think Liam can play guard and tackle. Do you have a sense as to where he might be better as NFL?
Well, it's the same thing, with the amount of guys on the roster, on game day. He's going to have to play multiple and learn multiple spots, and based on the dynamics in that room, whoever's active come first week of the season, which we got some time. There needs to be some flexibility to be able to play inside and outside, and we know that that's a hard role. And as each week goes on, going against another opponent this past week, playing another spot, it's going to help him grow. And we want that to be as fast as possible, obviously.
All of your NFL experience coaching in Houston and Detroit and here, do you remember being around a position that's going to require tougher decisions than receiver with this team?
Yeah, it's a good group. A thing that jumped out to my mind right away is just how many guys have caught an NFL touchdown or caught an NFL pass, and a lot of times there's guys that have never played an NFL game that are battling for a spot, and now there's a lot of experience at that position. So we've had some guys that have missed some practices, but we've also had some guys that we know can contribute to it at that spot. So it's going to be hard, and those guys have done a good job making it hard. That's what their job is. But they've all created value for themselves, and it's going to be a tough decision.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. How you doing?
I want to ask you about the progress we've seen is made. Obviously, you had a great camp this past Saturday. And so just the progress you've seen from him from the start of camp through these 2 pieces.
Yeah, it's been I'd say the biggest thing that we've noticed is the communication from quarterback to each position group. We think that there's got to be very fluid conversations within our unit, offensive line, quarterback, tight end, quarterback, receiver, and backs. We utilize the backs a bunch of different ways along with the tight end. So he's made strides from that perspective, and it's not easy to do all the time and point out when you're right or when you're wrong, and that's what we asked him to do at the start of camp, and he's done a good job at it, and that's what's enhanced his play-to-play efficiency.
The other tight ends, we saw Mike Gesicki do Gesicki things with that big catch over the middle. Are you also seeing any progress in his blocking, for example? I know it's kind of what people say about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that Mike does well, and there's some things that he knows he can improve on, and just like every other tight end in the league too. So we're working at that day to day. But when he's in there on third down and we need a catch, he needs to get open and catch the ball. He knows that's our standard, in that room, and he's working his tail off. He missed some days with the COVID situation, which to his credit, came back, worked hard to get back in shape, and we're seeing things back where we know them as.
What do you think of just the overall depth of that group of tight ends?
Yeah, we need to have depth at that position, just because through the course of a normal regular season, it's hard to get through multiple games back to back with all the contact, the reps that those guys play without injuries taking place. And so the more we can have at that position that really can be flexible, play, run, and pass, then we feel comfortable going into each game. And Hunter's catching up as far as his learning. Obviously his first camp, and had a little bit of a setback there, but he's back out there playing. We saw some good reps from him, in the game. So the more he can do, then more we keep challenging each position or each player in that room to improve their skill set. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we don't really think that from the latter. We don't really think that way. We do have some core plays that we believe in, but we want to utilize all of our talent that we have on offense. So running backs, there's different type of skill set with inside, outside, versatile. Being able to do both, protection. And then from the tight end perspective, there's a bunch of different players there. And then the receiver room, there's some guys that got to get healthy, and we got to catch up from a chemistry standpoint. But that's what the NFL is. Played a lot of games where maybe the best receiver didn't practice all week because he was nursing an injury, and then goes out there and performs. I mean, that's kind of what we expect from those guys. They're professionals, and then we expect to put those guys in the best position from a coaching standpoint to succeed on game day. Well, it's got to be versatile, from being able to, check the ball down when it's not there and get the ball in the hands of the backs, or notice a matchup, in a man-to-man coverage, whether it's a tight end or a running back, and being able to know the skill set of each receiver. They're all different. Some are tall, some are short, and some are pretty fast and quick, and others are, good contested ball receivers. So we got to know when to put the ball, up in the air for the contested ball receiver, and we got to know when the receiver is going to separate, from a route runner, if you will. So. Yeah.
How much does he have kind of time in the line to make that check to see how good that guy just make changes?
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback's got his ball in the hands, every play, so we give him, the ability to make the best and, decision for us and for the team on that situation. So if he felt that, that matchup was what he wanted, which, we were able to hit that in practice, we don't fault him for making that decision. We'd like to see it caught, but, we're going to keep working at that to make sure that the next opportunity we get with that, we hit it home. I think there's a lot of guys that are trying to get as many targets as possible. We got one ball, so unfortunately it's only one at a time there. It was just more communication, figuring out, maybe how he was seeing things and what his key was before the snap, and what it was post snap, and what he's looking at during the play. And sometimes the more you can get on the same page with what he's seeing, then either you can correct it or work off of it. So that was big. And then the situational work, just for a rookie, that's hard. So we're trying to get that early, as far as making sure that the situations that he's watching, maybe he's not playing them, but he's learning from the other quarterbacks, especially the veterans, It was well executed. We were able to get a chunk, get us close to field goal range, and then get a ball out of bounds, and then get potential points before the half. But you're right, that's not easy to do. I mean, there's some things defensively that they know what's about to happen, so it makes it that much harder. But we thought it was well executed from an offensive standpoint, putting us in position to get points before half. Well, we were talking earlier about just the communication from room to room. You have to drop the shield as a quarterback, and you have to admit to when you're wrong, and basically, you'll get the praise when you're right. But the players respect that, and the other thing is that those players need to understand what he's looking at too. So whether it's tight ends or receivers, if he expects those players to run a route at a certain depth and be in a certain spot versus certain coverage, then the tight ends, receivers, backs, they all need to hear that. And so he's been able to do that, go into each room, have a lot more of a face-to-face communication, not necessarily a coach coming in there and saying, hey, this is what the quarterback wants. So that part of his game is taking a huge step. It is. I mean, you're judged on how you perform, and in order to perform at your highest level, everybody's got to be on the same page. And he understands that, and I think he expects the players that are executing that play to see it through his eyes. So what's happening? Yeah, good to meet you.
About the value of having multiple tight ends and being able to put multiple tight ends on the field, kind of keep a defense honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, usually a receiver's in a game to catch a ball and run a route, and the tight ends and the running backs are usually in there to run the ball. So, when you're talking about the skill makeup of the 5 skill guys, those guys pretty much define what they're doing. The tight end has a role that's both run blocking and receiving that can merge both of those aspects of run and pass, play action, and create a lot more difficulty for the defense to prepare for that. So, you don't want to have all tight ends out there. You don't want to have none out there, from our perspective. And, having a good depth in that room provides us the ability to stay fresh, be healthy. If one guy's down, another guy can take that role, but also give a lot of a run-pass conflict to the defense, so that it's not just all their run defensive players in the game, or it's all their pass defensive players in the game. We want to make them, play that game a little bit.